Sam stood in his driveway, feeling proud. His new silver car was parked neatly under the morning sun. He had spent years saving for it. Every extra hour at work, every meal skipped at restaurants, and every holiday spent quietly at home had led to this moment. The car was more than just a machine to him. It was a symbol of patience, hard work, and determination. He walked around it slowly, admiring the shine. The windows were spotless, the paint was smooth, and the tires were perfectly black and new. He could see his own reflection in the hood and smiled. For the first time in a long while, Sam felt that his efforts were rewarded. The neighborhood was calm. Children with backpacks hurried along the sidewalks. Neighbors watered gardens or sipped coffee on their porches. Everything was peaceful until the sound of screeching tires shattered the morning air. A red SUV came rushing around the corner, far too fast for the small street. Sam's head snapped up. His heart skipped a beat as he saw it coming closer, swerving slightly. Before he could even shout, the SUV smashed directly into the side of his brand new car. The sound was sharp and painful. Metal bent, glass cracked, and pieces of plastic flew onto the street. Birds scattered from nearby trees. Sam's jaw dropped as he stared at the wreckage in front of him. His perfect silver car now had a crushed side and a broken bumper. The door of the SUV opened with a loud click. Out stepped Karen. Everyone in the neighborhood knew Karen. She was the head of the HOA, always carrying a clipboard, always ready to hand out warnings and fines. She wore her large sunglasses even though the sun was not too bright yet. She looked around, not embarrassed, not nervous, but annoyed as if someone else was at fault. Sam rushed forward, his chest tight. "Karen. You hit my car." Karen glanced at the damage, her lips pressed together in a thin line. She gave a small shrug. "You should not park so close to the road," she said calmly. Sam blinked in disbelief. "This is my driveway. You crashed into my property. My car is destroyed." Karen waved a hand as if brushing away a small problem. "The HOA will decide if this was a violation. You may need to check the rules about how far a car should be from the street." Sam could hardly believe her words. His car was ruined, and instead of apologizing, she was trying to blame him. By now, neighbors had come out of their houses. A few stood on their porches, others gathered on the sidewalk. Whispers filled the air. Everyone knew Karen's reputation. She had fined families for leaving holiday decorations up too long. She had complained about children playing too loudly. She had even told people what color they could paint their doors. And now she had caused real damage. One neighbor, an older man named Tom, shook his head. "That's Sam's new car. He just bought it last week." Another whispered to her friend, "Karen never admits when she's wrong. This will be ugly." Sam took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. His hands were shaking as he looked at the broken side of his car. All the hours he had worked, all the sacrifices he had made, flashed in his mind. This car was supposed to be his reward. Now it looked like junk in just one morning. "Karen," Sam said firmly, "you will pay for this damage. It is your fault." Karen gave a small laugh. "We will see. I have important HOA matters to handle. Do not try to threaten me. You may be fined if you keep your car like this in your driveway. Broken cars lower property values." Sam could hardly believe it. She had crashed into his car, and now she was suggesting she might fine him for the damage she caused. The neighbors murmured louder. Some shook their heads, others folded their arms, waiting to see what Sam would do. Sam clenched his jaw and stared at Karen. Inside, anger burned. He was a quiet man, not one to start fights. But this was too much. This was not just about a car. It was about respect, about fairness, about standing up when someone tried to bully their way out of responsibility. Karen turned back toward her SUV as if the matter was already closed. She picked up her clipboard from the passenger seat and pretended to check some papers. Her actions made it clear she did not care. Sam looked again at his car. The front headlight was broken. The side door was pushed inward. His dream car was ruined, and the person who caused it was acting like nothing happened. A thought began to grow in his mind. At first, it was only a spark, but then it grew brighter. If Karen believed she could get away with this, she was mistaken. Sam was not the type to let injustice slide. Not today. Karen had taken away his joy, but she had also opened a door. And Sam already knew what he was going to do about it. The crowd slowly began to step back, though most neighbors stayed near their porches to watch. Sam stood in silence for a moment, his fists tight at his sides, his eyes fixed on the dented car. The sound of the crash still rang in his ears. Karen was acting like nothing had happened, and that made it even worse. He turned to her once more. "You are not walking away from this," he said with calm but firm words. Karen slid her sunglasses up on her head and raised her chin. "I do not have time to argue with you. If you think I am paying for this, you are mistaken. The HOA has rules, and I know them better than anyone. You should be more careful where you place your car. Maybe now you will learn." Her words stung, but Sam noticed something else in her tone. It was arrogance. She truly believed she could control every situation. That arrogance gave Sam strength. Sam looked around at the neighbors who were still whispering. Some gave him sympathetic glances, but no one spoke up against Karen. Most of them had been fined or warned by her before. They had learned to keep quiet. Sam understood why. Karen was not just another neighbor. She had power through the HOA, and she used it freely. But Sam was not going to let that stop him. Not today. After the crowd slowly began to disperse, Sam returned to his driveway. He touched the broken edge of the car's headlight and felt his chest tighten. He remembered the first time he had driven it, the fresh smell inside, the smooth steering, the way the sunlight reflected off the hood. That joy had lasted only a few days, and now it was gone. Sam stood there thinking, and then his eyes shifted toward Karen's red SUV. The same SUV that had destroyed his car was now sitting partly across the curb. The front wheel rested on the edge of his property. The thought in Sam's mind grew clearer. If she would not take responsibility, he would give her a taste of her own behavior. Sam reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He dialed a local towing company. His voice was calm but firm when he spoke. "Yes, I need a vehicle removed immediately. It is parked on private property without permission." "Yes, right now." The man on the other end asked for details, and Sam gave the address and description of the SUV. Within minutes, the sound of a heavy truck rumbled down the street. Neighbors peeked out from behind curtains and doors, curious about what would happen next. The large tow truck stopped in front of Sam's house. Its yellow lights flashed, and the driver stepped out. "Which car is it?" the tow driver asked. Sam pointed directly at Karen's red SUV. "That one. It is on my property, and it is blocking my driveway. I want it gone." The driver gave a nod. "If it is on your property, then I can take it. That is the law." Karen, who had been inside her house by then, came running out as the tow truck driver began hooking up her SUV. Her face was red, her hands clenched at her sides. "What are you doing?" she shouted. The driver answered without hesitation. "This vehicle is being towed for being on private property. The owner requested removal." Karen's eyes widened, and she turned to Sam. "You cannot do this. This is my vehicle." Sam stood tall. "And that was my car you destroyed this morning. You showed no care for me, and now you will see how it feels when someone does not let you walk away. Your SUV is on my land. It is blocking my driveway. It is leaving now." The neighbors came back outside, gathering quickly to see the drama unfold. Some whispered excitedly, others smiled faintly. They had waited years to see someone stand up to Karen. The tow driver secured the SUV and began lifting it. The metal chains rattled, the engine of the tow truck roared, and slowly, Karen's vehicle was raised off the ground. Karen's voice rose higher. "This is not fair. I am the head of the HOA. You cannot tow my car. I will fine you for this. I will take you to court." Sam's eyes did not leave hers. His voice was steady. "You fine people for the smallest things. You use rules only when they help you. But today, the rules are on my side. Your car is trespassing, and you are no different than the rest of us. The law does not bend for your title." The neighbors clapped softly, some even laughing under their breath. For the first time in years, Karen looked powerless. She opened her mouth to argue again, but the sound of her SUV being dragged toward the street cut her off. The tow truck driver climbed back into his truck. "Where should I take it?" he asked. "Take it to the impound lot," Sam answered. Karen gasped. "You cannot send it to the impound lot. Do you know how much that will cost me?" Sam gave a calm smile. "Maybe now you understand how it feels when something valuable is damaged or taken away without care. Think about that when you look at my car." The truck pulled away, carrying Karen's SUV with it. The red vehicle disappeared around the corner, leaving Karen standing speechless in front of the entire neighborhood. Sam turned toward his broken silver car again. The pain was still there, but something new joined it. He felt stronger. He had not only defended himself but also shown the neighborhood that Karen was not untouchable. For the first time, Sam noticed small smiles on his neighbors' faces. A few even nodded at him with quiet respect. Karen, however, stormed back into her house without another word, slamming the door behind her. Sam knew this was not the end. Karen was not the type to give up. But he was ready now. He had taken the first step, and he would not back down. The battle had just begun. The morning after the tow truck had carried away Karen's SUV, the neighborhood buzzed with quiet excitement. People who normally avoided each other now stopped to chat. Whispers spread like wind through the trees. Everyone wanted to talk about what had happened. Sam had done what no one else dared to do. He had stood up to Karen. From his window, Sam watched the street. His silver car still sat in the driveway, broken and sad, but he felt different inside. He had taken action. He had shown Karen that she was not above the rules. Yet he also knew that Karen would not forgive or forget. She had power in the HOA, and she would try to use it against him. By afternoon, a letter arrived in his mailbox. The envelope was stamped with the HOA logo. Sam opened it slowly and read the words inside. Notice of emergency meeting. The letter explained that Karen had called for a special HOA meeting that evening. The topic was improper actions against HOA leadership and violation of community harmony. Sam chuckled bitterly. It was clear what this was about. She wanted revenge. He folded the letter and slipped it back into the envelope. Instead of fear, he felt a spark of determination. If Karen thought she could shame him in front of the neighbors, she was mistaken. He would attend the meeting, and he would speak the truth. When evening came, the community hall lights glowed warmly against the darkening sky. Rows of folding chairs filled the room, and neighbors whispered as they took their seats. Some children played quietly in the corner, while adults leaned in close, discussing the drama in low voices. Karen stood at the front of the room, wearing a neat blazer and holding her clipboard. Her voice was sharp as she called the meeting to order. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice. There is a serious issue we must address. It concerns the safety, fairness, and respect of our community." Sam entered just then. Heads turned toward him, and the whispers grew louder. Some smiled in encouragement, while others looked nervous. Sam walked calmly to the middle row and sat down. Karen cleared her throat. Yesterday, a member of this neighborhood acted against me in a way that was unfair and disrespectful. My vehicle was towed without proper notice, creating embarrassment and unnecessary costs. This kind of behavior is harmful to our community spirit. Murmurs filled the room. A few neighbors nodded, but more crossed their arms, waiting to hear both sides. Sam slowly raised his hand. May I speak? Karen's eyes narrowed. You may, though this is my meeting. Sam stood up. His voice was calm, but it carried across the room. Everyone here knows what happened. My new car was smashed yesterday morning. It was not an accident caused by a stranger. It was Karen's SUV that destroyed it. And instead of apologizing, she tried to blame me. She even said the HOA would decide if I was at fault. She walked away as if nothing had happened. A soft gasp rose from the crowd. People leaned forward in their chairs. Sam continued, her SUV was left blocking my driveway, standing on my property. I called the towing company because I had every right to do so. She had no right to be on my land. I did what anyone here would have done. Karen stepped forward, her face tight. That is not the full truth. You acted out of anger. You wanted to humiliate me. You think you can turn the neighborhood against its leadership. Sam shook his head. I acted because you refused to take responsibility. If it were anyone else who hit my car, they would have apologized. They would have spoken about insurance. They would have tried to make things right. But you used your title to escape blame. That is not leadership. That is selfishness. The neighbors began whispering louder. One woman stood up. Karen, we all saw your SUV. It was speeding when it hit Sam's car. We also saw where it was parked. It was blocking him. Another neighbor, the older man Tom, raised his voice. I've lived here 20 years. I have never seen anyone find more than under your watch, Karen. You use the HOA like a weapon. Sam did nothing wrong. Karen's eyes flashed as she tried to regain control. Order, please. This is not about old complaints. This is about one man disrespecting the HOA. Sam faced the neighbors directly. No, this is about fairness. This is about whether one person can make rules for everyone else but refuse to follow them herself. If Karen wants respect, she must first show it to others. The room grew quiet. People looked at one another, thinking about his words. For the first time, Karen's voice faltered. You cannot speak for everyone. I am the elected head. My position gives me authority. But a neighbor in the back spoke up. Authority is earned, not demanded. Yesterday, you showed us who you really are. One by one, more voices agreed. Some clapped softly, others spoke words of support for Sam. The hall began to fill with energy, a wave of people finally saying what they had kept silent for too long. Karen's face grew pale. She tapped her clipboard nervously. The power she once held in the room was slipping away. Sam sat back down, his heart steady. He had not needed to shout or threaten. He had only spoken the truth, and the truth had given him allies. When the meeting ended, neighbors came to him quietly, thanking him for standing up. Some even offered help with his car, while others simply patted his shoulder with respect. Karen gathered her papers quickly and left without saying goodbye. Her heels clicked sharply against the floor, echoing like a warning. Sam knew she was angry. He knew she would not give up easily. But he also knew something important had changed. The neighborhood had seen her weakness. They had seen that she was not untouchable. For the first time, Sam did not feel alone. The night after the HOA meeting, Sam slept lightly. His mind replayed the words spoken in the community hall, the voices of neighbors rising against Karen, the sound of agreement that had filled the room. For the first time, the neighborhood had stood up. But deep inside, Sam knew Karen was not finished. She would not let her pride rest. Morning came with a knock at his door. Sam opened it to find an envelope taped to his front porch. He pulled it down and read the notice. Violation warning, property not in compliance with HOA standards. Vehicle in driveway is damaged and must be repaired or removed within 48 hours to maintain community values. Sam let out a quiet laugh of disbelief. She had done it. Karen had fined him for the very damage she caused. He stepped outside with the paper still in his hand. Neighbors walking by slowed and glanced at him with sympathetic eyes. One woman shook her head and muttered, "She is pushing too far." Sam folded the paper and went back inside. His heart pounded with anger, but he refused to let it control him. He sat down at his kitchen table, placed the notice flat before him, and stared at it. Karen wanted a fight. She wanted to use her position to punish him. But Sam would not let her win so easily. Later that afternoon, Sam walked across the street to speak with Tom, the older man who had defended him at the meeting. Tom sat on his porch, sipping tea, his kind eyes watching the street. "Tom," Sam began, "Karen is coming after me again. She gave me a violation for my damaged car. I have only 48 hours before she fines me more." Tom set down his cup. "I expected this. She cannot stand being challenged. But you do not have to face her alone. We have all dealt with her rules for years. Maybe now it is time we come together." Sam raised an eyebrow. "Come together? You mean fight back?" Tom nodded slowly. "Not with anger. With unity. She thrives on making each of us feel small and powerless. But if we show her that the neighborhood is not afraid, she cannot control us anymore." Sam thought about it for a moment. "What do you suggest?" Tom leaned forward. "A petition. We can gather signatures from the community to demand a vote. If enough people sign, we can call for her removal as HOA head. It is in the bylaws. She has always hidden those parts from us, but I remember reading them years ago." Sam's eyes lit up. For the first time, he saw a real chance to end Karen's reign of control. "If that is true, then we can finally stop her. But we will need everyone's support." Tom smiled faintly. "Leave that to me. People are tired of her fines. They are ready. You just gave them courage yesterday." Sam nodded. "Then let's begin." That evening, Sam and Tom walked door to door. At first, people opened their doors cautiously, but once they heard the purpose, their faces softened. One by one, they signed the petition. Some told stories of unfair warnings, others shared frustrations about money wasted on pointless rules. Families who had stayed quiet for years finally found their voices. By nightfall, they had gathered more than half of the neighborhood's signatures. Sam carried the papers with care, knowing they represented hope. Meanwhile, inside her house, Karen sat at her desk, furious. She had expected Sam to feel trapped by the violation notice. Instead, she heard whispers from her window. Groups of neighbors stood together, talking, sharing papers, signing. The sight filled her with dread. For the first time, she felt the ground shift beneath her control. She slammed her pen down and muttered, "If they think they can take this away from me, they are wrong." The next morning, Karen struck back. New violation letters appeared on several doorsteps. Grass too long, fences too short, garbage bins left visible. She hoped to divide them again, to make them argue among themselves, to bring back fear. But instead of fear, something else spread. Neighbors carried their letters to Sam's porch, placing them in a pile. "We are with you," they said. "If she wants to fine one, she must fine us all." Sam looked at the stack of papers, feeling both anger and pride. He realized Karen's own actions were building the case against her. The more she punished, the more people resisted. That evening, Sam and Tom finished collecting signatures. Nearly every household had joined. The petition was ready. The rule was clear: with enough support, the HOA could vote to remove its head. The news spread quickly, and the neighborhood buzzed with energy. For once, Karen's clipboard held no power over them. But Karen was not done. She stood on her porch with her sunglasses on, watching the neighbors walk by. Her smile was sharp. She whispered to herself, "They think they can beat me. They have no idea what I am capable of." Sam knew she would not go down without a fight. He also knew the next HOA meeting would not just be another gathering. It would be the showdown that decided the future of the neighborhood. The lines were drawn. On one side stood Karen with her clipboard and rules. On the other stood Sam, backed by the voices of the people. And the real battle had only just begun. The sun rose over the quiet neighborhood, but beneath the calm morning air, a storm was waiting to break. Sam stood in his kitchen with the petition spread out on the table. Pages filled with signatures, names written in neat lines, each one a symbol of resistance. For years, Karen had ruled with fines and warnings. Now almost every neighbor had stood up against her. Tom arrived just after breakfast, his step steady and his face calm. He placed a folder on the table. "This is everything we need. According to the HOA bylaws, if more than half the households demand a vote, it must happen within 7 days. Karen cannot stop it." Sam read over the rules carefully. His chest swelled with determination. "She will fight us. She will try everything to stay in control. But this time we have the numbers." Tom nodded. "This time she is the one trapped." That afternoon, Sam and Tom walked together to the HOA office at the edge of the neighborhood. It was a small building with plain walls, a place most residents rarely entered except to drop off dues. They handed the petition to the clerk inside. The man flipped through the pages, raised his eyebrows, and gave a small nod. "This is valid," the clerk said. "The HOA must call a special vote within 1 week. I will deliver this notice to the head immediately." Sam thanked him and walked back outside with Tom. For the first time in days, the air felt lighter. The future was no longer in Karen's hands. But when Karen received the news, her reaction was far from calm. She sat in her office, her clipboard resting uselessly on the desk, and read the clerk's letter again and again. Her jaw tightened, her hand gripping the paper so hard it crumpled. "How dare they challenge me," she whispered. "After all I have done to keep this place perfect." In her mind, she was the protector of the community, the one who ensured every lawn was trimmed and every house matched. She believed without her, the neighborhood would fall into chaos. The thought of being removed made her stomach twist with rage. She decided she would not wait for the vote to take her down. She would strike first. The next day, Sam came outside to find another notice on his porch. This time it claimed his porch light was too dim, his mailbox too worn, and his grass too uneven. His car was mentioned again as a violation. He picked up the paper, shook his head, and carried it inside. He was not surprised. This was Karen's way. If she could not control through respect, she would control through fear. But fear was no longer working. Later, several neighbors came knocking on Sam's door. Each carried their own violation notice. Some laughed at the absurdity. One woman had been warned for having a flower pot in the wrong color. Another man was told his garden hose was too visible. They laid their papers on Sam's table just like before. "She is desperate," one of them said. "The more she fights, the weaker she looks." Sam looked around at the faces in his living room. They were tired but united. He realized something important. This was not just about him anymore. It was about all of them. That evening, Sam gathered the neighbors in Tom's yard. They set up folding chairs, and people brought snacks and drinks. Children played nearby while adults leaned close to listen. "We are close," Sam told them. "The vote will decide if Karen stays or goes. But we must be ready. She will try to twist things. She will say we are ungrateful, that we are breaking the community. We must answer with truth." A young father spoke up. "She fined me for leaving a toy in the yard. My son cried because of it. I will not forget that." An older woman added, "She told me to repaint my door because she did not like the shade. I paid money I did not have. That was not kindness. That was control." One by one, neighbors shared their stories. Each voice carried the same message. They were tired of fear. They wanted fairness. Sam listened to every word, his heart heavy but also strong. These people trusted him now. He was not just defending himself anymore. He was leading them. When the gathering ended, many stayed behind to shake his hand. Some even offered to help repair his car. The broken silver car sat in the driveway as a reminder of why this fight had started, but now it symbolized something bigger. It was no longer just Sam's loss. It was the community's turning point. Inside her house, Karen watched from her window. She saw the chairs in Tom's yard, the neighbors gathered, the smiles they shared. Her lips pressed together in a hard line. "They think they are united," she muttered. "But I still have the final word. They forget who holds the gavel." She turned away from the window, her mind racing. If the vote went through, she would lose everything. Her pride, her position, her power. She would not allow that. As the neighborhood prepared for the coming vote, Karen was preparing something else. A plan of her own, one that would test just how strong the community's unity really was. Sam did not know what she was planning, but he was ready. He had faced her once and stood tall. He would do it again, no matter what came next. The week ahead would decide more than just the fate of an HOA leader. It would decide if a neighborhood could rise against unfairness and take back control of their own lives. The battle lines were drawn more clearly than ever. The day of the special HOA vote arrived. The community hall was filled with tension and anticipation. Chairs were arranged in rows, and neighbors whispered quietly as they found their seats. Sam entered calmly, carrying the petition folder under his arm. He felt the weight of responsibility but also the strength of unity behind him. Karen stood at the front, her clipboard clutched tightly. She wore a sharp blazer and large sunglasses. Her expression was unreadable, but Sam could see the tension in her jaw. She had spent years controlling the neighborhood, and now everything she held dear was at risk. The meeting began formally. Karen called the session to order. "This vote is about the leadership of the HOA and the integrity of our community. I ask that everyone listen carefully and consider their decisions." Sam's eyes scanned the room. He noticed the supportive faces among the crowd. Neighbors who had been silent for years now held a quiet pride. Some carried copies of the petition, ready to speak if necessary. Karen continued, "It has come to my attention that some residents are challenging my authority. This is not acceptable. We have rules, and rules must be respected. Anyone who attempts to undermine the leadership of the HOA is acting against the community." Sam stood. His voice was calm but firm, carrying across the hall. "Everyone here knows what happened. My car was damaged by Karen's SUV. She refused to take responsibility, and instead she tried to punish me. That is not leadership. Leadership is taking responsibility, showing respect, and treating neighbors fairly." A few heads nodded, and whispers of agreement spread through the crowd. Karen's hands tightened around her clipboard. One of the older neighbors, Tom, stood next. "I have lived here for more than 20 years. I have seen Karen fine families over small matters, use fear to control, and punish those who speak up. This is not community. This is control." The hall grew quiet as Sam and Tom's words settled in. People looked at each other, thinking about the times they had been unfairly treated. Karen's voice rose sharply. This is untrue. I have always acted in the best interest of this neighborhood. Anyone who disagrees with me is acting out of anger, not reason. Sam took a deep breath. Reason is not choosing only what benefits you. Reason is fairness. Yesterday, Karen damaged my car and left it blocking my driveway. Today, she has tried to punish everyone who stands with me. That is not fairness. That is abuse. Several neighbors spoke up, telling their own stories. One woman described being fined for a small garden decoration. Another man spoke about receiving warnings for minor changes to his home. Each story reinforced the same truth. Karen had ruled through fear and strict rules, not through kindness or fairness. The clerk overseeing the vote stood and announced the procedures. Each household representative would submit their vote privately. If the majority supported the petition, Karen would be removed as HOA head. Sam watched as the ballots were distributed. He could feel the energy of the community in the room. They were united. They were ready. Karen tried one last time to sway the room. Do not be fooled by one person's story. Decisions must be made for the good of the entire community, not to satisfy anger or revenge. Sam shook his head. This is not revenge. This is accountability. You have been given power, and you have used it unfairly. The vote will reflect the truth of your actions. The ballots were collected, and the clerk began counting. The room was silent except for the sound of flipping papers. Every face in the hall was tense, waiting for the result. Finally, the clerk looked up. The votes are counted. The petition has been approved by a clear majority. Karen is no longer the head of the HOA. The position will now be filled by a temporary committee until a new election is held. A cheer rose from the crowd. People clapped and smiled at each other. Sam felt a wave of relief and pride. The neighborhood had taken back control. Karen stood frozen, her clipboard dropping to the floor. Her eyes scanned the room, disbelief and anger mixed with something else. She had lost. For the first time in years, she was powerless in front of her neighbors. Sam approached her calmly. This is not about hatred, Karen. It is about fairness. The community deserves leaders who care, not control. Karen said nothing. She gathered her papers, her face pale, and left the hall silently. Her sunglasses hid her expression, but the tension in her shoulders spoke volumes. Outside, neighbors celebrated together. People hugged, laughed, and shared stories. Sam looked at the crowd, feeling proud of what they had achieved. The neighborhood was free from fear and control. The unity they had built over the last week was stronger than any rule or fine. Sam's broken car still sat in his driveway, a reminder of the fight they had fought. But now it also symbolized hope, courage, and the power of standing together. He knew Karen might try to find another way to regain power, but for now, the neighborhood had won. They had learned that when people stand together for fairness and respect, even the strongest control can be challenged. Sam looked around at the smiling faces of his neighbors. For the first time in a long time, everyone felt safe and heard. The battle was over, but the lesson would stay forever. The neighborhood was no longer just a collection of houses. It was a community, built on trust, courage, and unity. And Sam, who had started as just one man defending his car, had become a symbol of hope for them all. The neighborhood was quiet that morning, but a feeling of relief and excitement filled the air. The HOA vote had ended, and Karen's control was gone. Sam stood outside his driveway, looking at his silver car. It was still damaged, but it no longer represented defeat. It represented a fight for fairness and the courage to stand up. Neighbors passed by, smiling, waving, and stopping to chat. Some carried small gifts for Sam, simple gestures of gratitude. He felt a warmth in his chest. What had started as one man defending his car had turned into a movement that united the entire community. Tom approached him, clapping him on the shoulder. "You did it, Sam. You showed everyone that fairness and courage matter more than fear." Sam shook his head. "We did it together. I could not have done this alone." Word spread quickly through the neighborhood. People began discussing plans for repairs, improvements, and small celebrations. They had more than just freedom now. They had a sense of unity. They were no longer divided by fear or rules that served only one person. Sam's car was next. A local repair shop offered to fix it at a discounted price after hearing the story. Sam smiled, thinking about how it had all begun with a simple act of standing up for himself. The car, once a symbol of loss, was now a symbol of resilience. Meanwhile, Karen stayed inside her house. She had lost control and the respect she had tried to enforce through fear. Her clipboard sat on the table, unused. For the first time in years, she felt powerless. She thought about the fight she had started, but there was no way to regain what she had lost without causing more division. Outside, the neighbors gathered for an informal meeting. Sam stood in front of them, speaking with the calm confidence that came from experience. "This neighborhood has proven something important. No one person is above fairness. We have the right to be heard. We have the right to live without fear. Let us continue to work together, not just to repair cars and fences, but to build a community where everyone feels respected." The neighbors nodded, murmuring agreement. One woman spoke up. "This is the first time in years I have felt truly safe here." A young man added, "And it feels good to know that standing together can make a difference." Sam smiled, looking at the group. "It is not just about the vote or Karen leaving. It is about what we do from now on. We must care for each other, listen to each other, and respect each other. That is what makes a real community." Over the next few days, repairs began. Sam's silver car was taken to the shop, and neighbors helped each other with small projects around their homes. Fences were repainted, gardens trimmed, and driveways cleaned. The atmosphere was different now, lighter, happier. People greeted each other more warmly. There was laughter and conversation instead of tension. Sam realized that the fight with Karen had taught him something important. Standing up for what is right requires courage, patience, and the willingness to act even when it is difficult. He had learned that fear loses its power when people unite, and that even a small voice can inspire a movement. One evening, Sam stood on his porch, looking at the street. Children rode bikes, neighbors talked, and the sun set behind the houses. The broken car in his driveway was nearly gone, replaced soon by a repaired one. But the memory of the struggle remained, a reminder of the strength of community and the importance of fairness. Tom came up behind him. "You did more than defend your car. You reminded everyone here that respect and courage matter more than power." Sam nodded. "And we did it together. That is what counts." The next week, the HOA committee began its work. They met openly with the neighborhood, listening to concerns and ideas. Rules were clarified, fines were discussed fairly, and people felt included. The shadow of fear that Karen had created was gone. Sam looked at the neighbors around him. He realized that the real victory was not removing Karen. The real victory was the trust and respect that had been built. People were no longer afraid to speak up. They were ready to help each other, to listen, and to work together. Sam's silver car was finally back on the driveway, shining brighter than ever. But it was no longer the only symbol of pride. The neighborhood itself had become a symbol of resilience, courage, and unity. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Sam smiled. He had fought for what was right, and the neighborhood had won together. The lesson would remain for years to come. No one could control others through fear. Respect, fairness, and unity were stronger than any rule, any fine, or any single person. And with that, the neighborhood entered a new chapter, one where everyone had a voice and everyone was heard. The fight was over, but the victory would last forever.